A lot of times I'll sit around Sunday mornings and like, oh, I'm just eating cereal, watching Jeremy on TV. So, what you got going on, Jeremy?
Well, that's different from me because I won't watch it. So I see myself on television. I turn the channel, which was funny though. I turned it on the other day and I'm flipping through, and there I was speaking Spanish. I was like, I had no idea I could do that.
Didn't know you were bilingual there, did you?
Yeah.
What's up, guys? Brandon here, Modified Rides Podcast, bringing you one of my friends. God shot a feature for here recently. Y'all might have seen him on TV. Jeremy Bumpus. He's been seen on Car Fix. A lot of times I'll sit around Sunday mornings and like, oh, I'm just eating cereal, watching Jeremy on TV. So, what you got going on, Jeremy?
Well, that's different from me because I won't watch it. So I see myself on television. I turn the channel, which was funny though. I turned it on the other day and I'm flipping through, and there I was speaking Spanish. I was like, I had no idea I could do that.
Didn't know you were bilingual there, did you?
Yes.
But does the wife and kids watch you on TV?
Not really. They Kim will sit down and watch it because she's into all this stuff. JB, my son, he'll sit and watch it, and he loves the YouTube stuff for some reason, which is what I don't like to watch as much because I'm just kind of I'm flying off the cuff, I'm just doing whatever. Man, he'll just sit and watch YouTube video after YouTube video, and I'm sitting there listening to myself beside him, and I'm like, dude, turn it off. It's like so
So
sick of listening to my voice.
sounds like you got your next video producer already in the family. So
Yeah, probably. He's trying to block on cars. He's trying to build cars. He told me the other day that I thought it was funny, because he is into cars. He's about to be 7, and he goes, "Dad, I think when I turn 16, I want a Charger." And I go, "A Charger? That's pretty cool, yeah." And I'm thinking a newer Charger, because he sees them running around, and he's like, "Yeah, I want a Charger." And I go, "Well, if you do everything right, good grades, you keep playing, he's a golfer. I'm like, you keep playing golf,
yeah.
you do that. I'm like, we could probably get you a Charger. And he goes, yeah, and it's got to have the blower sticking out of the hood. And I went, whoa, wait a second. So you're talking about like an old Charger, like 68 9. He goes, yeah, what do you think I'm talking about? And I was like, you like and he likes Fast and Furious. I'm like, you mean like Dom's Charger? He goes, yes. Dom's Charger. And I was like, dude, you're talking $150,000 car. It's like, you
No,
have to.
Dad can build it.
I told him, I was like, you sign a pro contract at 16. I'll make sure you get that Charger.
So, let's get into a little bit about who Jeremy is. I'm sure we'll touch on quite a bit of the stuff, but who is Jeremy Bumpus, and what do you own? What do you do?
Yeah, so I own the Hot Rod Shop in Corinth, Mississippi. We build everything. We've got, I don't know if you can see behind me, but we've got some old original builds we did. We've got the Maverick sitting here. The OBS chassis right behind me too. So I mean, we're all across the board building all these cool stuff, and we've got the television show that we're doing, and social media is starting to blow up for us. So we're just, I'm just trying to keep up. It's just crazy.
You seem to be the face of the company for sure. I mean, you're cool videos every day. Learned recently you're scared of heights with the new shop you're doing. So,
Yeah, are you scared of heights?
I mean, it depends on what the height is.
I mean, it's probably about 20 feet. I'd be happy for you to come do it.
I don't think you want me doing any construction if you want anything to be built right. So,
Man, I'm probably the only guy that can get in a scissor lift that it won't move or go anywhere. And my knees were hitting each other. They were shaking so bad. I mean, I was like trying to get the light up. I was like, I was terrified, but I couldn't get anybody out there to do it. I had no choice.
let's start back at the beginning. When you were a kid, what got you into custom vehicles? Was it a neighbor? Was it your parents? Like, how did you first fall in love with custom vehicles?
So my dad, he's into cars and trucks, and he always had square bodies, so we had those around. When I was 3 or 4 years old, we had a '68 Camaro in the driveway, so we had that stuff, but he wasn't really out there working on the cars. I had an uncle that was playing around with cars, and I was getting into it. But I remember one day we were driving through Memphis, and here came a '64 Impala, three wheeling through a red light. And I remember just seeing the bottom side of that car, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And that was it. It was for me. That's all it took, you know. And then started playing around with the Camaro in the driveway, got it going, and did some stuff with that. But once I got 15 and got a truck, man, mini trucking was hot and heavy then, So I started working on those trucks, doing the mini trucking stuff, and then next thing I knew, my buddies were bringing me their trucks, and we were working on them. And I had no intention whatsoever of doing this for a living. I just enjoyed messing around with these trucks because I had a baseball scholarship. I was going to go do that. I thought I was going to be a teacher. I was all this. I had no idea that I was ever going to do this, and then here we are. So, long story short, that's kind of how that happened.
So you gave up on the baseball career to turn wrenches, basically?
Pretty much. So that didn't go so well with everybody else. So yeah, I played. When I was a kid, I played travel ball, did all that stuff that seems like everybody's doing now, and played all over the country. And I played ball in college for a little while. And my thought was I was going to go to school to be a teacher, and I was going to coach. And I got somewhere in there, I got burnt out, and I was like, I just need a break. So I'm going to take a year off from school. So I take a year off, or at least from playing ball. So I take a year off, and even in that year off, the next year, I had a coach call me and go, "Hey, come play for us." And I still didn't go back and do it because within that year, I built a truck, and then I don't know what happened in that year, but I got so invested in building these trucks and doing this stuff that I decided, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to go to a Votech school, like a WOW. I went to VC Tech, which was in Alabama, which is pretty much a WOW Tech. It was all WOW
Yeah.
Tech instructors. It was all WOW Tech. And I went there and I thought, because I still had it in my mind, I was going to be a teacher. I'm like, I'm going to go there. I'm gonna, learn all how to the proper way to do everything, and then I'm going to go teach that stuff. And once I left that school, I came here and started working, and we started building hot rods. And I got so busy doing that on the side, and when I was just working here, that that took off. That I never even thought again about doing anything else. It just was such kind of an accident how all this happened.
Did you start working like out of your garage at first, or did you have a shop right off the bat? Or
So as soon as I left that school, this what we're in right now, we've been here for 20 years now. Before I owned it, friend of mine owned it, and I stopped here, and I drove my mini truck up, the Toyota pickup that you shot, remember that one?
yeah.
So I drove that up here, and he walked out and he was like, "You built that truck?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Man, you got to work for me." So I went to work here in this building, and then I was doing it at home on the side, mainly building mini trucks on the side. Here we were just doing like muscle cars and stuff. And man, we were so busy here, and I was so busy at home, and yeah, it just never slowed down.
Now, when you said you built that truck that year you took off a baseball, was that the Toyota, or was that a
No,
different
so
truck?
actually, I built a Ranger that year. So I built a Ranger extended cab splash. It was 95, and I built it. Cool truck. Showed it for a little bit. I remember, went to I think it was Mini Nats. Then we took it down to Spring Fling. Did a couple of we pretty much did a year or two of shows with it, and then I sold it. And when I sold that truck, that's when I built the Toyota right after that.
So that's where me and Jeremy first met each other. Was at Slamming and Jamming in Lebanon, Tennessee. And, of course, I was there covering for Mini Trucking Magazine, Street Trucks, Trucking. Like I was shooting for all of them. So I'd go shoot as many features as I could every weekend. And he was one of the ones I'd shot. And I remember a little maroon Toyota. Remember the road it was on, like off to the side of the
Yeah.
fairgrounds. I'd probably shot 3 or 4 that weekend in that. If I'm not mistaken, that's the year that all my buddies took off on the golf cart that Charlie had loaned us because the bikini contest was going on while I was shooting yours, I think. And
Yeah,
they
they
were,
left you. Yeah.
yep. They was like,
Yeah.
hey, we're gone. Took the golf cart, took everything just because they had like on stage passes because of me being there for the magazine while I
Yep.
was shooting yours. So,
And then
um,
they leave you, and then we start shooting the truck. And I hadn't put the poppers in the doors yet, And I remember I shut the
Oh,
door and we couldn't get back in the truck. So then we're out there with a clothes hanger trying to get the handle. Yeah, that was eventful.
I remember I recently come across those pictures, and there's pictures of you trying to get in the door with it locked, like me shooting through from the other side.
Yeah.
So that was, when was that shot?
Oh man, I don't.
Early 2000s?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that was early 2000s. Had to be.
Because I started shooting in '01. Uh, so it probably, like, you don't remember what years you had that truck?
And I'm gonna say it had to be '05 or '06, maybe. Does that
So I
sound
hadn't
right?
been doing it that long. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so I remember, I shot it. At that point, I shoot so many back to back. I'd shoot 8, 10, 12 features in a weekend, and I would save them as what color they were, who they were. And I remember I saved yours as Bumpus Toyota. Then several years go by, here we are. And, I guess that's 2020 or whatever. And I kept seeing you pop up on TV, and I'm like, Jeremy Bumpus is like, that has to be the same guy, because Bumpus is not a Smith or a Jones or a Miller. Like,
Yeah.
it's a completely different name. And I
Yeah.
always wondered, I'm like, I wonder if that guy on TV is the guy that I shot that truck for. I'm like, that's pretty cool that I shot a guy's truck that's on TV now,
Yeah.
and then I remember seeing pictures of the Maverick start popping up. I'm like, that's cool. Someone's doing graphics on it, and the shop was tagged, and your name popped up. And I was like, huh, that's Jeremy Bumpus. Like, it's got to be the same guy. And I remember I sent you a message and said, hey, are you the one I shot that Toyota for?
It's
And you were
me.
like, yeah, you were like, well, actually, you were just brought up because somebody's trying to remember who was it that shot the Toyota back then.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
that's funny.
but like I said, all the times I'd see you on TV, I wondered if that's who that was, because you never know where somebody's going to go. At that time we were all pretty much still kids, and you never know what someone's going to do. But I thought it was cool that was that was you. Then to keep me updated on the Maverick. We were back and forth. Finally, the Maverick got done. Shot it for Street Trucks, and gosh, that was the middle of 22.
Yeah.
Yeah, the middle of
Yeah.
22, because shot it, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna run it on cover." We're just Ford's doing big with it. Ford's gonna advertise with it. We're gonna run it on cover, and then it turned into, you can't buy them, no one has them, you can't
Nope.
order them. Like, if you had one, you were lucky. Like, no one could get one. So they're like, "Well, we just don't know about running a Maverick on the cover when you can't go buy one."
Yeah.
Well, then I remember at SEMA, uh, there was what, 4 or 5 there that year.
Yep.
There were modified Mavericks, and a couple of the reels that posted on Street Trucks just blew up, and they're like, I guess the love behind these is pretty big. Let's go ahead and run it on cover. So I knew we were back and forth trying to get it to run, but then we finally got it to run after all that. But so that was what, 15 years in between both shoots for you.
Yeah. Yeah. 15 years in between those shoots. And I questioned, like, when those Mavericks blew up, I was looking at this Maverick and I'm like, maybe I should sell it. It's like, I just go double my money with it. And then I was thinking I should have ordered like 4 of these things. I mean, I had no idea they would do what they did. It was pretty wild. And then people were building them, and I had the idea. I saw the truck was going to come out. And I saw the Maverick, and we don't really have, I guess, mini trucks anymore or whatever. And I walked in here into the showroom one day, and Kim's sitting there, and Bob, he's got kind of manages everything out there for me, and I go, I think I'm gonna go buy a new Maverick, and we're just going to build a new Maverick. We're just going to build a brand new mini truck. And my wife Kim. She is like, she's a hot. She knows her cars, man. She can get out there and
Yeah.
work on them. She's not an act. She's the real thing.
Well,
And
what
that's
is her?
probably
Don't
the
she
only.
drive a Cuda? Isn't her
Yeah,
car a Cuda or something?
she's got a Cuda that she did a lot too, which is super nice. But I remember walking in and saying that I was going to do that, and I think it's about the only time that she ever looked at me and went, "That's a terrible idea." And I was like, no. And after a few minutes, I kind of didn't take long. I got her on board, and then everybody kind of got on board with me. And we got it ordered, and I remembered we picked it up. I think in SEMA, we were at SEMA 21 when I got the call that it came in, and then I flew back home. drove right over to the dealership, picked it up, drove it over here, had about 5 miles on the thing, and we started cutting into it. And then that's when all the hate began of, you know, your old guys, the generations before us, telling me how I'm ruining a perfectly good truck.
Well, it's not, you're not going to be hauling hay with it. Like that's what they're meant for. That 4.5 foot bed isn't doing anything.
No, you can't do anything with that truck. I mean, it's like,
It
I
works for
mean,
me because I throw my camera gear and stuff like that, and I'm good to go. So I bought one not long after you got one, and I was like, I'm gonna, play with this, and I already had a SEMA spot confirmed, and the local dealership offered me like $8,000 more than I paid for it. And I'm like,
yep,
well, I guess I'm not going to SEMA this year because it's too
nope,
hard to pass that up. And then, this last year at SEMA in 23, everywhere on the West Coast, they were all over the place. And I was like, I really want another one of those. Like, that was so fun to drive. So now I have another Maverick. I'm not going as far as Jeremy did with his. We're just doing a little, probably a 3-inch drop. Beltec's coming out with a kit, throwing some 22s on it and drive it.
yeah.
Of
I
course, yours is.
almost got another one too. I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to, what you're doing is kind of what I wanted to do. And then I was like, I don't need another one, but I had dealerships calling me because they knew I had this one. When it got to that point where you couldn't get one, these Ford dealerships were calling me going, hey, we understand you've got a 2022 Maverick, blah, 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 blah. We'd love to have a chance to buy it or whatever. And I'd send them a picture back of it like this, where it's all done. I'm like, I
Full
don't think you want
graphics.
it back now.
Just send them a picture of the cover and be like, all right, well, it's going to cost you more now because it's a cover
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah. A
So,
lot more. Yeah.
but what made you want to do the Maverick, just to get back to your mini truck roots?
Yeah, basically, it's we get to build a lot of cool stuff for a lot of really cool people. And we'll build our own cars every now and then. I've got this really badass Mustang over here that I did a long time ago, but it's like, man, I want to do another mini truck. And I looked at Toyota pickups. I tried to buy that Toyota pickup back that we shot back then. I was running around at that time trying to figure out what mini truck I was about to build. So I knew I was going to do a mini truck. I just didn't know what I was going to do. And then this, I don't remember exactly when this was, but there is a guy at Ford who I can't mention who sent me an email around this time that was like, "Hey, we're coming out with this Ford Maverick," and I was like, "Well, what's like?" He didn't really specify what it was. He
Yeah.
just said, "We're coming out with this Ford Maverick. It's going to be really cool." And I was like, "You're coming out with another Maverick?" I'm like, "What's this thing going to look like?" I'm thinking a car. Well, then we talk a little bit, and he tells me what it's going to be, and he's like, it's going to be our smallest pickup. It's going to be smaller than the Ranger." And I'm like, "Oh, now that's cool."
Yeah.
So before it even got, I guess before anybody really knew it was coming out, he had told me that, and that's when I told Kim about it. And as soon as they would let me put the order in, we put it in. So, I mean, I got one as fast as I could get it. So I was probably just about to get another Toyota pickup and build another one. And then we found out about that one.
The bad part is if you found a good low mile Toyota pickup, it's probably going to cost just as much as the Maverick did new, is what's crazy.
Yeah, those things have went up a lot. I searched like crazy. When I sold that Toyota, once we shot it, I thought, okay, I went as far as I want to go. I'm done with this truck. So I sold that truck to build this Mustang over here, the black one that I've got that's on the Grant, the '67. It's a
Yeah.
really cool car. And years go by, and I'm like, I need to get that truck back because I got the showroom with some of my older builds, and I could not find it. Couldn't find who I sold it to. Couldn't find any information about it. Well, one day this guy sends me a text message with a picture of the truck, and it's covered in dust on a trailer. Like, I mean, like when I say like an inch thick of dust.
Like barn
And
find.
so what happened? Apparently, this guy bought it from me. On the first week he had it, he got a DUI in it. So his wife told him, "You can't drive this truck anymore." So he put it in his barn, shed, whatever it was, and it sat there until like 2018, I guess, or so. And somebody else found it and bought it for next to nothing. And then I tried to buy it from them, but price was got a little crazy for me for that. I knew
Yeah.
what I could build for what it was going to be, but man, I wish I could have got it back.
But you would have completely redone it. It still wouldn't have been the same truck as it was back then. But you couldn't throw the family in a truck that small, and Now you go to shows in the Maverick and you throw the kids in the back and
Yeah,
y'all roll. You could have done that in that
yeah.
standard cab Toyota.
No, they love this truck too, man. And it's got the 815s in it, the 8 MTX 15s. It's like 6,000 watts. And my kids are little, but man, they love that sound system. And I'm like, I'm gonna go to jail for how loud we're driving down the road listening to this with you in here. And
It
then
is
they love
pretty
hitting us.
pretty
We're
violent. I'll give you that.
we were at when we were at Mini Nats with it. We're cruising with everybody, and the air ride on it's quick because we did the 8 half-inch valves, half-inch line, and we made this sucker move so the rear will hop off the ground, a few inches,
Yeah.
and they love that too. So JB and Kobe are sitting in the back, and of course we're on the strip, and traffic's not moving, so they're not buckled. They're just dancing and listening to the music and stuff. JB goes, "Dad, hit the switches." So I just went pow 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 and hit the rear real quick. Next thing I knew, he was holding the back of his head, laying in the seat. And I was like, "What's wrong?" He's like, and my Kim goes, "You just threw him into the roof."
He's young. He'll outgrow it. It's
Oh,
fine.
he was, after it's over with, he was like, "That was so cool." And I'm like, as long as it didn't knock you out, I guess we're all right.
It was cool. I think you were one of the, you and Kenneth were the first two to do, the Mavericks when they first come out. What's cool is I was the one that shot both of y'all.
Yeah,
So the fact that two Mavericks come out and I shot both of them, like to me, that's cool. So, as someone that grew up around the mini truck world like that, that was cool to bring that back. I had a guy yesterday on Wes on the last episode, and we were talking about when his truck got shot by Courtney and Lance at Mini Nats, 98.
yeah,
So it's like to see the mini truck world come back, even though it's not a true mini, it's a unibody. I hear the same thing about my truck. It's
yep,
still a fun little modern, 4-cylinder, vehicle. So, well, so let's go back. So, you did the trucks. So in between, I guess the Toyota and the Maverick is when you got hooked up with one of the TV channels to do a little filming with that.
yeah. That also total accident. Like I've had some good accidents, I guess. So when I built that Mustang over there after the Toyota, and when I finished that, I just started showing it. And that car at the time was different because it was a muscle car that was on the ground. It was on air ride, and I got, especially from the older generation, like I don't even understand, like how is it that low and what are you doing, and it was all that kind of stuff. So
Even the
when I
pro touring stuff was kind of, taboo to them because a lot of those guys wanted the original, wanted it back to what it was. So I guess
yeah
by throwing air on one, you ruined it in their eyes.
yeah so that, and it was funny with that one. I got a lot of crap on that car. That was a 6-cylinder, no option, no AC car. My mom had it sitting in the driveway. I sold the Toyota. I'm like, what am I going to get? So I was thinking I'm going to do this to a Camaro, and she just goes, "Why don't you just take the Mustang? Like it's nobody's doing anything with it." And I'm like, "Hey, good idea. Now I don't have to go buy a car." So I started with that one, and man, I started cutting that thing up, and I got so much of like, "That's not possible. You can't do that," and all that. Well, once we got it done, we just started showing it, and it got shot for a magazine. We did that. It was winning, a lot of where it was going. It was getting a lot of attention at that time. And I remember I was at Good Guys in Nashville, and this guy walks up and he just was like, "Hey man, you ever thought about doing TV?" I was like, "No, not really." And he goes, "Well, here's my card." He goes, "Why don't you just get with me and let's talk about it." So I go home.
What year was this?
This was probably 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that area. I don't remember exactly when that was.
So it was still early in the whole car TV,
Yeah,
when the big blow up with, bitchin' rods and Texas Metal and all that stuff. I guess it was still early in that world, wasn't it?
yeah, I think I got into TV at a really good time. Like obviously now with YouTube and digital stuff, TV's changed a lot. But I got in at a really good time, and had some good years in it. But that I got with that guy, and he said, "Hey man, just send me like a 2-minute video just walking around your shop," and which for me was really weird. And like I saw a teacher of mine from elementary school, just a couple years ago. She teaches over here by the shop. And she goes, "It's just so crazy to watch you on television because you would literally take an F as opposed to get up in front of 15 kids and speak in the class." And that is totally true. I wouldn't speak in front of anybody. And when that car was kind of going around winning shows, I remember having a news crew come up and was like, because it won at whatever show we were at. They were
Yeah.
like, "We just want to do a quick interview with you." And I was like, "No, I'm good." And they were like, "No, just literally, it'll be 10 seconds. Just tell us your name, your car." And I'm like, "No, I'm okay. Maybe try that guy." I wouldn't even do it. So I send him this 2 minute little video, walking around the car and just talking about what I'm doing. And they called me and they were like, "Hey, we'd like for you to come in." So a couple days later, I drive out to Nashville where they film those shows. And I basically walked in, did a quick interview, went into a studio. There was a F100 there that we ended up building later. They were like, "Just give us like a 30-second open. Like if you were going to open the show, what would you do?" So I'm like, I just went around and did it. Walked back up into the office. I was That was a Wednesday, I think. I was at work filming that next Monday. I mean,
And which show was that?
that was Truck Tech.
And that was part of the Power Block.
Yeah, so that was Power Nation when I went there. So it had just changed
Okay.
from Power. It was literally changing, I believe, when I went in. And yeah, that was pretty wild because I mean, I went from I think a week and a half to never thinking I would do television to filming. And it was that quick. I was like, this is unbelievable.
Now that was Speed or Spike, or what channel was that back then?
Then we were Spike. We went from Spike. We had a few network changes through there. We were Spike, Paramount, History Channel. We were pretty much always airing on NBC and CBS Sports. They always stayed there. So we had a few networks we were always on, but it changed a couple times. But mainly Spike when I was there.
Which is now Motor Trend.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Spike just went away. I don't know what
But that
happened with that.
company was bought up by Motor Trend, is what it.
Basically, yeah. I mean, that's where well, no, because now RTM, where I was at with Power Nation, where we were on Spike, I think they're only on YouTube now. So I don't even think they're on a network. So the
Okay.
Motor Trend stuff, I guess before that was Velocity and those shows that I'm on now, Car Fix and stuff, those were kind of always on your Motor Trend side of things.
Yeah. Now, if I'm wrong, let me know. But in the Nashville place where you filmed, like all the TV shows had their own bay and like one big warehouse or something.
Yeah, so it's a pretty awesome place. It's a building in Franklin, and if you drive through the street, you wouldn't know it was there, but it's this huge warehouse. And when you go in, the studios are just in a line. So you just got each studio. I mean, you can walk from one to the next one, and they're all filming all day long. It's actually not knowing a lot about TV when I went into there. It's actually pretty crazy how they film that because you film 5 days a week all year long. And that's not really how a lot of TV is. So
Yeah.
we would film an episode in 7 to 9 days, which is crazy. On Carfix, we film it in a day and a half.
I was gonna say, it
So
seems like that's a long time for one episode.
yeah, so the differences there were so when I was doing Truck Tech and we were doing 7 to 9 days, so we're obviously the talent in front of the camera. We're showing what to do, but when the camera cut, we actually finished the work. So we would
Ah,
have to stop what we were doing and we would have to get that work done to be able to go to the next thing we're going to film, right? So there was a lot of work in between. There was no behind the scenes guys, there was no nothing where it's like Carfix, we film it in a day and a half, but we've got a few guys there we're still doing the work, but we've got a few guys there where if I'm working on something or Brian or myself or metal shaping, whatever we're doing, we can tell that guy like, "Hey, be prepping this other thing for us while we're working on this." So by the time we get done with that, they've already got it ready for us, and we can just keep. I mean, it's just like you just keep it rolling.
how long were you at Truck Tech?
I did that for I think 4 or 5 seasons, and then the business that was taken off, and we just couldn't keep up. And I was filming 5 days a week. I worked it out where I could kind of get out of there early on a Friday. I would drive 2.5 hours back to the shop, and I would literally work Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. Would barely see the wife or the kids. I would drive back Sunday night, film again, And I did that for about 2 years until I finally was like, I can't do it anymore. And we were just too busy. So I've
You
more or
still
less.
ran the shop then. You still had your shop.
Yeah, so we were doing the shop. So Kim was basically handling all that. I was just coming back because I'm normally the guy, like, I'm always behind the paint gun. So, I
Yeah.
could have the guys getting something ready, but I was going to be the one to shoot it. Or if it was something maybe metal shaping wise, I'm kind of the one that was doing it. So they would kind of get stuff ready for me through the week. And then I would come in and do it on the weekend and go back. And it just got where it was just too crazy. I mean, I was going on 2 years of no sleep, and I was like, I just can't. I just need to focus on the business because it was taking off.
I'm sure Kim probably put her foot down on that too and said, you need to be home. These kids are wild.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, that's a nice way of saying it.
um, so you after you left there, did you just focus on the shop and try to get it grown?
Yeah, so I came back and I just, man, it was so nice because it was so to be working so much and then to come in, which I still worked a lot here, but to come in at 8 in the morning and just work all day with the guys and build cars and design stuff and do all that, it was so nice to be able just to do that 5, 6 days a week, not worry about anything else. And so we were doing that and just trucking along. And next thing I knew, I got a phone call like, you want to do some more TV? And I'm like, I have no idea why, but I go, yeah, sure, let's do more TV. But luckily that worked out good because we'll go down and we'll film for 3 days, get 2 episodes, and I get to come home for a month and work. So I'd go down there basically 1 week out of every month, and I still got it's perfect for me because I can do TV and still be kind of in that scene, and I can come back and still run the shop.
Y'all film in Tampa, right?
Yeah.
So you said you do 2 episodes?
Yeah, so typically we'll do 2 episodes, sometimes three. So if we do three, that's just a full week. That's just 5 days.
Yeah.
So typically, Brian and myself will take our own projects down there normally. So I'll load up on a Saturday or Sunday, make the trip down. We'll film for a few days. I'll load stuff back up and just head back.
Now, with that, is it every week that a new episode comes out, or how often does a new episode of Carfix release?
So we do 16 episodes in a year. So, 16 episodes a season. So if we film in January, I think they start airing in April or May, and pretty much through the year at that point, it's new episodes. I'm not sure exactly how they have those set up now, but I believe you would get 5 or 6 new episodes, and then you might get 5 or 6 reruns, and then you'll get 5 or 6 new episodes type of thing. Just kind of runs that
Keep
way.
keep it
Yeah.
running, yeah. So with the TV side of things, though, I know you said you never thought you'd be on TV because you couldn't do that. But would you go back and change it if you could have changed it from day one, or you truly enjoy doing it?
I talked about this the other day to somebody. They asked me that question. I said the only thing I would do different is I would go back to like '05, '06, maybe even earlier, and I would have tried to get into TV then. If I knew what I knew now, I definitely would have tried to get into television in the early 2000s, but I had no intention to do it. So obviously I didn't know, but I think I would go back and I would have done that sooner, and I probably would have focused more on the television side of things because with the background, I was going to teach this stuff anyway. That
Yeah.
was the whole plan. So now I get to teach it on a bigger platform. So it worked out pretty good.
So now you're just teaching people on Sunday mornings.
I'm trying to. I might half-ass it sometimes, but I normally try to give it my best.
I know in the truck world, when you brought the Maverick on Carfix, it went crazy, and
Yeah,
then you brought the wife's Datsun on, like everybody's like, "Oh my God, did you see the Datsun on TV?" I think the fact that you're being able to bring more of the scene into the TV and it not be the same, 10 vehicles that everybody's worked on for 30 years.
yeah.
I think that's a whole different perspective and probably touches a whole different demographic than some of the shows.
Yeah, it's. I think the production company really liked it too. At first I don't know if they really knew what to expect with a mini truck, but my theory on a mini truck is, you can, like we talked about, you've got maybe the older generation far beyond us now who didn't understand what we were doing. They're like, this is so like, what are these kids doing to these trucks? But like if you take the Datsun for instance, it's getting back halved, four linked, it's body dropped, it's I'm building panels, I'm building floors, the stuff that we see, all these guys do. You can apply that to literally every single, whether you build a Nova, an
Yep.
OBS, a 68 Camaro, it's a 32 Studebaker. Doesn't matter. You can take everything that you do with a mini truck and apply it to something else. It's just on a little bit different platform. So when I brought it in, the production company loved it. So, we back halved it and they were like, man, and that's one of the only times that I've had the production company call me pretty much immediately and go, we've got to bring that truck back. And the network doesn't really like a lot of multiples, like seeing the same project over and over again. They
Oh,
they
really?
like, yeah, they kind of like not seeing that project more than once or twice. They want it to go away.
But would
That's
you
one.
not want to complete the project?
Yeah, I don't. I'm torn on that because in when I was doing the other show, Truck Tech, we completed everything we did. We had a payoff, we did all that, and so when I went into Car Fix, I was like, well, don't we want to finish the build and have a payoff and do all that? But I mean, I kind of understand that aspect of it too. We're shooting so quick, and as we all know, it takes so long to build a car. So
Yeah.
we try to find things to where it's not necessarily focusing on building the car. Maybe it's, if it's dent repair, we'll just focus on that dent repair, not necessarily what you're doing the dent repair on, just showing you how to do that dent repair, and then that car can just go away. And but that Datsun, that's one of the few that like I kept getting a phone call like, bring it back, let's get it back, where are you at on it now so we can bring it back. It was, so that was pretty cool. Yeah,
Well, overhauling says you can build a vehicle in a week. According to
man.
TV, you can build
you
it in a
know
week.
I told Chip when we were at Brian's thing. Brian had a kind of
Down
a
in Georgia.
museum. Yeah, and it was pretty cool. He had all his builds there. Chip was there. Brian and Chip were there. I'm like, you guys like totally ruined it for all of us, right? Because I still have people walk in the door that are like, well, can't you build me a car? Surely you can build it in a month, if they can build one in a week. I'm like, yeah, try like 3 or 4 years maybe. And they're like, they just can't even comprehend that. When 3 or 4 years comes up, they're like, I don't know. It's like if I were just building one car, sure, we'll build a car in a year, or 9 months or a year. But when you got 20 out here and you're spreading it out, man, it's like the never ending process.
Well, I know when I was talking to my buddy Adam, he was at Counts Customs there forever, and he's like, they'd come in on a Thursday and be like, "Hey, we got to film this car complete on Tuesday," and they're like, "We still have 6 weeks left on this." They're like, "No, it's going to be done Tuesday," and
Yeah,
they're like, "Well, I don't know how, but okay."
it's there's a lot of faking it sometimes. You make them look done, I guess. But man, to actually get them done that quick, I mean, it can be done, but it's hard to do.
Well, some of these people that do these SEMA builds, and Jake at Fat Fabs did that dually in 8 weeks. You saw that one, didn't you?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, how do
crazy.
you take a brand new dually, stuff 30s on it, a full chassis, full interior in 8 weeks? And it's like, and there was other projects involved. So
Yeah, that's just thinking about that. It keep me up at night. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I actually walked out today and I'm like, man, we got to get some of these out of here. It's like we've been on this one for 3 years, been on that one for 4 years, but I think we've got a different kind of. Well, other people may have the same method, but I feel like we got a pretty good way we do this because you got people who obviously have money and can build these cars, and there's
yeah.
people that they'll just spend whatever it takes to have their car built, and you can do it in 9 months, a year, and they'll spend it. But we still can build for people who just have a regular job that aren't millionaires that just want to build a cool car. But if you spread that out over 4 or 5 years, where you're spending 20 or 30 a year on it, or whatever, 20, 30, 100, whatever, you can spread it out. Those people sometimes can still build a car because you're not asking for 100, 200, 300 grand in 9 months, So it makes us take longer to build them, but it does help to be able to build them for everybody.
Well, thinking of the people spending that kind of money like that, with the economy doing like it is, have you seen any kind of, you know, downturn or anything? People like, hey, let's slow down on this project. Let's,
No, like we have not, and I've always been fearful of that, but we haven't seen any of it, and I say it all the time. It's so crazy to me that people will spend the kind of money they spend on these cars because they're labor intensive, and it's parts are expensive. We've got a truck out there that has got 150 grand just in parts in it, and we hadn't even touched it yet. And it
Wow.
just blows my mind how much money can go into these now, when 15, 20 years ago we were building these muscle cars for 30 or 40 grand, and now it takes 200 grand to build one, and it's just, I wish so badly we could build them all for nothing, but man, it's wild how much gets spent on them now.
And I'm sure you have the people come in and be like, "Hey, can you paint my car for $3,000?"
Yeah. So I had a
Well,
guy
yeah,
come
in
in
1997 I could.
I had a guy come in recently that kind of thought that he had a new basically all new panels, and you know how that stuff goes.
Yeah,
It's like a new panel doesn't mean anything. They still need just as much work typically as everything else.
if
But he
not more.
comes in and I give him a quote on it, and he's like, "Oh God, man. I was thinking like 5 grand Mike would get it." So I'm like, "Well, come here, let me show you something." So I pulled out my paint supplies. And I'm not talking sandpapers, body work, primer, anything. I went from sealer to paint to clear coat, and I laid all that out, and that was about $8,000 in just base coat, clear coat, sealers, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Because we're using some really good stuff, and yeah, that
and
might have been
that's none
fine.
of your disposables at that point.
No, and I'm like, just the materials to lay down on this thing is more than you thought the whole job would be. And then you gotta think 3 or 400 hours in gapping this thing out, TIG welding the gaps, because we're gonna have to move some stuff, and all the panels are wavy, and so you've got how many hours in blocking the thing flat, and then once you paint it, you cut and buff it. And we'll get some of them that come in and like, wow, but don't worry about cutting and buffing it. I don't want that. It's like, oh, I don't want any part of that. Then it's like,
Yep.
I don't want to.
Because then they're
I
gonna be
don't
like,
want.
"Did you see how rough this paint job was that Jeremy did?" And it's like, "Yeah, because you cut the final step out of it."
Yeah, I told the guy, I'm like, that's or you'll have somebody come in and be like, this stuff really doesn't happen to us much anymore, but I want you guys to do all the metal work and the body work, but I got a guy that's going to spray it. And I'm like, no way, man, because that's the easiest part of the whole job. So I'm going to do the 500 hours worth of work to get it laser straight, and then we're going to let somebody else spend half a day to shoot it, and we don't know what he can even do. It's like, I'm not giving that guy all that credit. Like,
How many vehicles you usually keep in the shop on a given day?
way too many. So I think right now we've got 10, 11 in the finish shop. We've got another 7 or 8 in the body shop. So it's roughly 18 to 20 that are being built. But like I said, there's 5 or 6 that kind of get cycled out because we take breaks on them, let that guy kind of recoup and build up some money to do it again and that kind of thing. And then we've got 8 or 9 where they're just like full blast. Let's go, let's rock on them, like our OBS and stuff like that. We're just trying to get it banged out, but we've got way too many. So when we kind of make the move to this new shop, hopefully it'll down. We're going to downsize it a little bit, or we can just kind of focus a little more on. We've got such a good customer base right now. I want to kind of just focus on those guys.
Yeah. Well, I know, most shops are like, "Oh, I'm out 2 and 3 years or whatever," because they don't. I guess they only do a couple at a time because they don't
Yeah.
have the kind of room you do. So I guess that's fortunate on your end that you have the room. But how many employees you usually keep on a normal day?
So we're normally 6 or 7, but I mean, in all honesty, I could probably have 15. But as you know, and most people in this industry who are shop owners like I am, to find people who are actually skilled enough and qualified to do this kind of work. I mean, it's just hard to find those guys. So I've got pretty much a tight knit group that are all, they're all talented dudes, and we can all work together, and nobody's chewing each other's head off through the day and that kind of thing. So we kind of just keep it like that. But yeah, man, I could have a lot more if we could find the guys, but I think that's kind of everybody's problem.
Well, I know I brought this up on another episode the other day. My buddies that work in the collision industry are all struggling at this point because the body men, the painters are all basically aging out. They're, to almost retirement age. Well, they don't have anybody that's coming in that wants to paint and wants to do body work. So it's almost like it's become a dying art to some degree. Do you
Yeah.
see that on the custom shop side of it?
Yeah, so the way I felt the past few years, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, man, this is just what are we gonna do? It's just gonna end up being me out here blocking and painting cars. Luckily, my body guy here, Ben, he's a good friend of mine. We've been together for 20 years. So, that's hard to find somebody that,
Yeah.
is that dependable and that loyal and all that. But what I've seen like just recently in the past 6 months is I've had so many young dudes coming in, like wanting jobs. And that totally stopped for a long time. Like it was just if I got anybody coming in, they were definitely older than me. They were 50, 60 years old and that was about all I was seeing. And you'd get one of those Kim was mentioning it the other day. 10 years ago, I bet we had I would say two or three a week come in wanting a job. And then it got to COVID and that stopped completely.
Yeah.
And then a little while after COVID, nothing, man. Like maybe one guy a year. Like we're not actually, obviously we're not posting hiring or anything, but you get maybe like one a year to come in and be like, hey, man, you hiring? And now all of a sudden, I have had like, anywhere from 18 to 20-year olds, probably, it seems like, again, like once a week coming in, like wanting to learn how to do it, wanting to get a job, or they're already in a VOTEC school and this is what they want to do. So, I mean, that's looking up, I guess, at least that I'm seeing that right now. And a couple of
That
guys I have here, they're younger guys and they're super talented. So yeah, it makes me not feel as bad about it as I did.
that's super promising to see the guys come up like that. I guess it's the collision side. These guys don't want to, just fix crash stuff all day. But I guess in
Yeah.
your world, it's you're working on cool stuff. You're not replacing fenders and airbags. So
Yeah. Well, it's like I tell those guys out there, it's like I'm pretty good, I'm just the way that I like to do it is if you come here and you work for me, I want you to treat it basically like it's your shop. I want you to like, it's like show up to work every day, let's have a good time and all that. But when you get here, like I don't have to be there to tell you what to do. Like, you know what to do. Like, go to work, make it happen, enjoy the day, pop in some earbuds, rock. I don't care what you do. Just, get in here and get at it. But yeah, there's a couple of young dudes that I have right now. It's looking good with those guys. And, I'm getting to where my shoulders really hurt when I block nowadays. And
we're all getting old.
it's like my hands don't want to work anymore. It's just,
Yep, that was one of the reasons I gave up the whole soft drink business is because my hands would just be so sore, and my back and my knees, and I'm like, I'm just getting too old for this. I'm breaking myself down.
I'm blocking a 68 Charger right now. Really, really cool car. I mean, you'd really love this thing. And it's about to go in the booth, and I've been getting it ready to go in the booth for the past week. And I'm telling you, man, I don't know, out of nowhere, my hands hurt so bad. I'm like I'm like going to bed like I'm holding a block. It's like they don't want to move. It's killing me.
Yep, that's that age thing creeping up. So ibuprofen, that's somebody posted the other day. Can we do the candy necklaces, but have it be Tums and ibuprofen? Like I'm good with that.
Yeah,
Something I
that's what
never thought I'd need. Now I'm like, all right, where's my Tums and ibuprofen necklace
that's
at?
how
Like
I'm walking in the shop tomorrow. Necklace of
string them all
ibuprofen.
together.
I'm just gonna gnaw on those things all day long.
Craft project for the kids, put it all together for you.
That's good.
So with you being in this business this long, do you have one vehicle that is your absolute favorite one you've ever turned out that stands out above the rest, or they all blend together?
Man, I get asked that question a lot, and I never know how to answer it. It's like the hardest question for me. There's a bunch that we've done that I really love. Like getting to do rare cars were fun. Like doing a Superbird. We've done two of
Yeah.
those. Like you don't really hardly see one, let alone get to build one of them. But like it's normally though, like it's probably not an answer a lot of people want to hear. But the is normally what I'm working on at the moment ends up being my favorite build. We got a Chevy 2 that we're finishing that's about to leave. So right now it's like I'm all about this Chevy 2 and I don't want to see it leave. I'm like, I need to drive it one more time or I need to drive it to, whatever. And probably, I mean, I would say getting to do something like the OBS at the level we're doing that truck, that's awesome to me because that's what we grew up in And, we saw those trucks and people starting to modify them and all that. But to have somebody who really, like, they came to me and just basically said, we want the baddest OBS on the planet. I'm like, do you have any idea what that would take? And they're like, we want the baddest OBS on the planet. And I'm like, well, I'll do everything I can do to make that happen. So just to have people that will let you do that is
Yep.
awesome. And we've got the other one we have going right now, I'd say is my favorite, is a 68 Camaro. And one of the most awesome people I think I've ever built a car for, because literally is allowed me to build it like it's for me. Like, I called him and I said, what chassis do you want to do? Do you want to do a chassis, whatever? And his answer is, whatever you want to run. And I go, what wheels? Whatever wheels you'd run. What size wheels? Whatever size you'd run. And now we're getting to a color, and I'm like, all right, you got any colors in mind? Nope. Whatever color you want to paint it. And I'm like, wow, like those.
Well, that
And we've
just
got a
says
few of those, and that's awesome.
he trusts you as an artist, because at the end of the day, you're still an artist because of
Yeah,
what you can do with your hands.
yeah, and
Even though they hurt at the end of the day,
yeah, my hands suck so bad. But yeah, it's pretty awesome because there's a handful of them that are like that now, and it's finally getting to that point where it's like we're just kind of building what we want to. They're just letting us build them. Like we've got the renderings over here that Eric Brockmeyer does for us, and they're super awesome. So we'll kind of sketch up something for him, or I just give him my ideas, and we render these things out. And I love it because I'm putting what I would do for me on a piece of paper, and these people are like, yes, that's what I want to do. And I'm like, man, this is like, who would have ever thought?
That's kind of one of my interior and audio guide, Ultimate Audio. When I drop something off, I said, kind of have a game plan. This is kind of what I want, but what would you do if it was yours? And every time he goes, I'd leave it stock at your house. And I'm like, well, that don't do me any good if you leave it stock at my house. I need you to do it like it was yours. He goes, if it's mine, I'd leave it stock. And I'm like, but it's also the guy. I'm like, all right, so what'd you decide you're putting in it stereo wise? And he sends me a picture of a pile of wires in the floor. And I'm like, that's just call me when you're done with it.
Yeah, I'm stealing that line from that guy. That's pretty good. I have to
Yep, I
use
leave it
that.
stock at your house.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine this guy that we're doing the Camaro for if he doesn't come by and look at it. Like, I've not even seen him. We're halfway through building this car, and he's never walked in here. And
Really?
I couldn't imagine if I called him over and said it was done and we built it original.
Do you send? I mean, I guess you're sending pictures of it, or
Yeah, so I sent him, but he never asked for him, and he's just recently sent another one over to us that we're doing more of a driver car for him, because this one's full
so
show,
far?
but yeah, so far, and but yeah, it's kind of changing too as we're getting into it, but yeah, man, I love those guys. It's great to have customers like that.
Well, I know as a photographer and as a truck magazine editor, that OBS is the one that I keep waiting to see done. And every time you post something, I'll comment and be like, okay, is this one done yet? You're like, no, not yet. Because
I
you were
want
the first one with the Roadster Shop chassis for an OBS, other than the
other
one
than
they built,
theirs.
right?
Yeah, other than that one, we got the first one. So we, in the beginning, the plan was to try to build that truck pretty fast. And as we started getting into it and we did the rendering and we did a lot of really custom stuff in the rendering, it's some of that stuff, unless we were just focused, if we were just focusing on that truck, we definitely could have done it pretty quick. But with these other builds, we've just done so much trick stuff on that truck. It just takes so long to build it. Like, we've got it on the rotisserie now, so we're about to blast it, because the funny thing about that is we normally hand strip everything we do here. We'll just almost every car we hand strip them. That's just the way we
Yeah.
like to do it. And we started stripping this truck. The dad and the son built this truck in the early '90s, and they built like a Pro Street, had a blower out of the hood. It was a really bitchin' truck. I mean, the tires were huge under this thing, and they painted it and did all that. Well, we go to strip it. We're 36 on a big mud buster, just gnawing into this thing, and it is not doing anything. And we're like, what is on this truck? And we start putting aircraft stripper on it, different strippers we've used in the past that just eat it away. We take a 5-inch grinder with 36 on it. It's like it's barely taking it away. Well, here we use Glazerite paint. And then I called the guy and I'm like, as bad as I hate to sandblast this truck, we're gonna have to sandblast it, or we're gonna have 10 grand in us, like, just trying to strip the paint off of it. Turned out it was Glazerite they painted it with. So that's good to note,
That
because
it holds up.
it's like concrete. We can't get it off. So It's supposed to actually get blasted tomorrow, and we're going to get that blasted. The bed's almost done. We've got to build the bumper to go into the bed, and then we're going to mock it up one last time in metal, and we've got to build that front end, which in the rendering is pretty bitching. So it's going to take
Yeah.
a little while to build that. We've got the engine panels done. We've got the dash built. So we got a lot of the fab work finished up on it finally, and hopefully the body work and paint will go pretty quick because I mean that's compared to what we normally build. That's a fairly new truck.
Yeah. I know, me and you had talked about this when Roaster Shop released those chassis. You got a lot of the keyboard warriors was like, "Oh my God, that's so expensive for a chassis. Who would ever build that for a chassis?" But you said you sat down and did the math on what you would have built a chassis for,
Yeah.
and you said it was about the same as what that
Yeah.
fully plug and play chassis was.
So I mean that one is a more expensive chassis, because we got all the bells and whistles with that thing. So it's an expensive chassis, but still for what you're getting, I think it's well worth the money. So we're building a chassis for another truck out here right now, and I mean we'll have more in that chassis than we do this roaster shop chassis. And then when you get into like their spec chassis, like we've got under the Camaro and stuff like that, where you're
Yeah.
paying 20 to 25 grand to get a full blown done chassis. There's no way in hell I could build a chassis for that. Unless we were set up and we were jigged and we were building them all the time, it would be different. But once you
Yeah.
start putting that time in it and making sure everything's perfect, man, it gets expensive quick.
I can imagine. So, but I do look forward to that one coming out just because of what it is. So, we'll have to keep on the contact on that one. Hopefully, we won't have bumps and stuff come through like we did when we shot your Maverick. People coming over, sketchy part of Chattanooga there, everything boarded up, and
Man, that one guy that came through, I was like, all right, we got to get out of here because this is like, I don't know where you brought me, but this is the wrong place to be right now.
hey, the building was cool. That was all that mattered. I saw
Oh,
the
it was
cool building.
great.
It worked out. So,
It was great, but the 10 people that were hovering around us, it was like we're out, like we were all back to back trying to watch, making sure nothing was going to happen to us.
there was fences around us. We were fine to some degree.
Yeah, I guess I mean, we did get out of there okay. So I mean, I guess it's okay.
So, for people to find you, other than watching you on CarFix on Sunday mornings, where do people find you to see what you're building and what you're involved with?
Yeah, so we have been hitting social media pretty hard. So Instagram, Facebook, I think YouTube, they're all at the Hot Rod Shop MS. And I post stuff on those every day. I think YouTube's, close to once a week. We're trying to start hitting YouTube pretty hard. That was something I was kind of against. I was like, man, I don't want to do YouTube too. Then everybody, of course, is like, you got to do YouTube. So we're trying to hit that one hard this year. Our social, like I was telling you earlier, our reach for January was 6.1 million. We're 5.7 in February. So we got a lot of eyeballs on this stuff, and I'm just steadily putting out what we're doing each day and just trying to keep up.
Well, you do turn out the good content. I mean, you obviously know how to talk in front of a camera. So, to have you in front of the camera doing your own stuff, that seems like it comes easy to you. So, I'm sure people see that on their end. It's not like you're watching some guy go, "Here's the bolts we put on this truck."
Yeah, the hard part for me, I guess, is doing it. So, or I'm out here trying to work, and I'm just like, man, I need to get this done, or I need to get that car painted, or whatever. And the thought of going, well, man, I need to stop for 10 minutes and go film that. I'm like, oh gosh, man, I really don't have time to go film that. At the end of the day, it takes nothing, but that's the one thing where every day when I'm filming stuff every day, but I'm like, I dread it. I don't know why I dread it, and then it works out great, turns out good, but it's hard to stay consistent with that stuff.
Well, this is where you need to have your kids teach one to work the camera, teach your son to do the production side of it, and just be like, all right, follow dad around the shop. I'll make
I,
sure you have dinner tonight.
I'm working on it. I've been working on that. My 11-year-old, I've already got her kind of doing some of that media stuff, and she's become this little artist. So I've been trying to get her to do the renderings for me. Like when I have an idea, I've been giving it to her first. And I'm like, draw this. We got a little Volkswagen Beetle at home, that Kim likes, and like render this thing up for me. I'm gonna paint it. So she drew it out. And I'm like, she might have it in her. It looks like she's promising right now.
That's good. Then you have someone to pass it down to. So,
Somebody better take it. I don't know what the hell else I'm going to do with it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. You know, like I said, we run into each other at some of these shows. I know this year you're focusing on the shop, trying to get the shop built up with the new building. So, you know, we won't see you at many shows this year. I'm sure we'll run into you at SEMA this year. So
Yeah,
just stay
plan to.
away from those Uber drivers that like to crash on the interstate in Vegas. So
Man, I thought that was the end. I thought everything was over. Like the last night of SEMA, we're cruising along in a cab, and I'm like, nice night. I hear tires squealing, T-boned, and but the funny thing, I don't know if I told you about it. The funny thing about that crash is we get hit. Obviously, it's scary. You're not in
yeah,
control. You don't know what to do. And as this car hits us and kind of T-bones us, that wasn't really the bad part. When it T-bones us and we start to veer like toward the concrete barriers, it looks like we're on a bridge. It looks like we're way up in the air. I mean, and all I'm thinking is we're going off of this thing. So I've got my feet pinned against the door. I'm pinned against Kim, and I'm braced for like this is full flight about to happen. And we hit, and I mean, I'm probably screaming like a girl. We hit this barrier, just boom, and it was hard. It was a hard hit. And then I'm like, oh, okay, thank God we didn't go over this thing. And then I crawl out the window. There was nothing there. It was literally nothing on the other. We were not on a bridge. We weren't even close to a bridge. I don't even know what happened, but I thought we were going like I thought it was a flight.
so I guess what you're saying is at SEMA this year you're going to rent your own car and do your own driving in town.
I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna walk everywhere I go. It's like, man, I couldn't get back. It took me probably like at least a good 6 months before I got back in an Uber or a taxi. And then when I got in it, you think you just hop in, you ride along, you don't think anything about it. Man, I'm gripping the seat, I'm sweating, I've got the oh shit handle. I'm just like, oh man, like I'm terrified. This dude's about to crash the car. I finally kind of calmed down, but man, that was not fun at all.
Well, like I said, appreciate you coming on and talking with us a little bit. Give the listeners something to hear. So I'm sure at some point we'll have you on down the road and see what you're building and what you got coming out of the shop. So until then, we'll just look for you online and on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, man. Can't wait to show you the new spot. You're going to like it.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for checking us out and listening to Jeremy's story.